Hello there. Without Brexit, Russia would probably not have invaded Ukraine. And not just anyone, but the chief exit negotiator on part of the EU is talking about this. It's not Michel Barnier, but it was the Prime Minister of Belgium. He was the European Parliament's chief negotiator for the exit negotiations with Great Britain. And he was criticized for making a lot of money for extra income. So in other words, it's Guy Verhofstadt, and he had a career as a top European politician like many others. And during the Brexit talks, he was omnipresent on all channels and played up the European conscience. Now it's clear that the analytical skills of the model European and member of the Flemish Liberals and Democrats are not that great. In a broadcast, he said, "A united Europe, certainly on defense matters, would make an enormous difference. I think maybe that without Brexit, maybe there was no invasion. I don't know." Well, that is if the British hadn't decided to turn their backs on the EU in a vote in 2016, and the Russians might not have invaded Ukraine, he means. Well, the example perfectly illustrates how the public and the media often get caught up on people who use some very populist arguments, no matter how far-fetched and lunatic there is, to promote their position. Putin annexed Crimea in 2014 when the UK was still a member of the EU. But still, British Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has not ruled out supplying fighter jets to Ukraine now. At the same time, Wallace urged patience on Thursday. One thing I've learned over the past year is don't include and don't exclude. That's what the minister said in Portsmouth on Thursday. That's the simple reality. We respond to each Ukrainian's needs based on what the Ukrainians say, what our intelligence services see, and what we know about the Russians on the battlefield, he said. At the moment, Ukraine primarily needs artillery to push back Russian troops, Wallace said. We mustn't get carried away. Last week, we gave tanks. What's next? It will take months to train Ukrainian pilots on British fighter jets, and Wallace is quite right there by saying this. The priority must be to train the troops to recapture Ukrainian territory. Unfortunately, there is no magic wand to end those fights. Great Britain was the first country to agree to supply main battle tanks to Ukraine. However, some politicians, such as former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, are already vehemently demanding that Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also provide aircraft, although Johnson is using everything to put pressure on Sunak. Together with Foreign Minister James Cleverly and their respective colleagues from Australia, Wallace visited a training center for Ukrainian soldiers in southern England on Wednesday. But one word back to Verhofstadt. He said a lot of right things during the Brexit talks. But I know he's a very big friend of the Brexiteers. I remember it of that time. But sometimes he's really going over the edge. And I'll see you in my next video. I'll be back.